Welcome to a new daily top Askreddit video. Today's topic: what piece of media is just straight up propaganda? America's Got Talent. It promotes the idea that talent goes hand in hand with struggle, so much so that genuinely awful acts make it through on the strength of their sob story. People have a hard enough time accepting the work that goes into being a creative without having to attach a tragic backstory to it. I watched Eurovision for the first time this year, and my favorite part was I didn't have to sit through I was born with an incurable disease that was miraculously healed when my mother gave me all her vital organs story. MasterChef is the worst. I just want to watch people cook interesting shit. I don't give a flying fuck about how a contestant making scrambled eggs reminds them of the trauma of their childhood golden retriever's lifelong struggle with alopecia. That's why I can't watch American Ninja Warrior anymore. Once it got to the girl who equated beating the warped wall as equivalent with beating her cancer, I was out. That, and the 10-minute sob story only for the contestant to immediately fuck up and flop into the water. My cousin is a very talented singer and auditioned for The Voice, and they even asked him to come out to be a contestant on the show. Until they learned he didn't have a major sob story in his life, so they told him not to come just a couple days before his flight. Fuck those people. Well, now he does have a sob story. Feel-good stories, like 8-year-old kid saves up $3,000 by working to help sister afford her surgery. It's really rather depressing that a kid has to raise money because the family can't afford necessary medical care. It just shows how broken the system is. The fact that they will have it on during breakfast news and interview her before then after an ad break. By the time they send a camera crew down there, pay for the uplink back to the station, the network could have paid for a dozen or so of these. But instead of that they will milk this situation and use it to get the viewers to watch the ads. A surprising number of big-budget US films get funding from various branches of the military to portray them as good guys and peacekeepers. In exchange they get extensive creative control over the script and in some cases final cut privileges. The filmmakers get access to money, shooting locations, vehicles, advisors, logos and uniforms, and of course money. You could argue that of course if you were offering this kind of support you wouldn't want your image to be disparaged in any way. But we're not talking about Captain America holding a can of Coke. Imagine it as product placement, but the product they are selling isn't the military itself, but the thematic connection between the military and heroism, righteousness and moral good. Top Gun is the longest Navy ad ever. First one resulted in a 500% increase in Navy recruitment rates. Absolutely insane. Thousands of kids thinking they can be Tom Cruise, and about 5 of them really do. If you watched Pacific Rim and then say, another American kaiju movie or even I think the sequel and wondered why Pacific Rim has such a different tone, this is definitely partly why. Guillermo del Toro went out of his way to not use US military funding and it shows. It's definitely much more humanity fuck yeah. And not America fuck yeah. Like say, a Transformers movie. That sequel just got it hurt. They really took the Punisher and fucked up the message. Castle, there are criminals out there who rape and murder and steal and are untouchable by the law, so I will deal with them. Cops, hell yeah, Punisher, show them how it's done. Castle, guns down a bunch of corrupt cops. Cops, no, not like that. Castle, I only exist because cops are fucking useless. Cops who heroically, this guy gets it. I mean, the Netflix series is fantastic, and portrays the fallout from military service on men and their families, the PTSD that remains unaddressed and turns men into psychopath monsters if not addressed, and how the US completely abandons vets once they've served their purpose. It's an incredibly poignant narrative on the real toxic masculinity, the societal pressure for men to be the breadwinning heroes for their family, the mental toll it takes to be separated from your support system, and how opportunities to improve and recover exist but are often ripped away by societal expectations. I feel like people avoided the show thinking it was just goo and goo bullshit, but it really wasn't. Punisher really was the last franchise I would ever think to go there. But they did, and honestly it's one of my favorite series of all time. Totally agree. Wasn't a flawless show, but it's a damn good one, and JB is perfect in that role. I never understood how it was behind the other Marvel shows, JJ and Luke Cage in particular, in critics' eyes. It's like they reviewed the resume for each show rather than the show itself. The Internship, 2013, just wedding crashes but taken over by our Google overlords. Praise be. I recognize it's a huge ad, but I still love it. I still say on the line every now and then. Lol, I say that and fist me when offering a fist bump. Any modern war movie featuring real military equipment. To get access to the equipment, they need to work with the Department of Defense. For them to allow it, they need to approve the script. For them to approve the script, the movie needs to give a positive portrayal of the military. Not always. You will be surprised at what you can buy decommissioned at government auctions. There are people who dedicate their entire career to picking up everything from tanks to anti-aircraft guns. Keep in mind these things don't always have to work, they just have to look the part. With guns, almost everything not being fired is an airsoft gun, and you have armorers whose job it is to get the other big stuff. You also have entire departments dedicated to building things. Yes, a lot of movies that have military stuff in it does get the grace of the US government, but not everything. The new Top Gun absolutely does, as all the jet shots are not green screen and took months of working with the military to build in specialty camera rigs etc. Source: I've worked in the film industry for 15 plus years now. The entire cop show genre. It goes back to the radio drama days and spans drama, comedy, infotainment, documentary, and multiple other genres, but it almost always presents the police as being the white-hatted good guys out to stop the bad guys. This is why The Wire is so good. We Own This City, Simon's limited series that wraps up this week, is a nice coda to that masterpiece and features many of the kids now grown up, playing cops, actually grappling with corruption and the blue code of silence. I love the show Law and Order, but I have to wonder how much damage it's done to our public view of police officers. On the show, if someone takes the fifth, they're guilty. If a cop beats up a suspect, they were guilty. Heck, if they shoot them, interrogate them hard, frame them, lie to them, hack their personal computers, etc. It's all okay, because they're guilty. If the lawyer bends the law in order to convict someone, it's okay, because they were guilty. The problem is that the real world isn't so black and white, but people start assuming that it is. All cop shows, even stuff like Dexter, portray internal affairs as a bunch of borderline evil people who want the murderers and rapists to win, also their precious paperwork gets filled out correctly. If the lawyer bends the law in order to convict someone, it's okay, because they were guilty. Why are you such a guilty piece of shit? Objection. Withdrawn. Smirks. Don't forget the innovation of Dirty Harry, the cop who was celebrated specifically because he operated outside of the confines of the law. That film started a trend of media featuring state-sponsored loose cannons that pushed the pretties that it was okay for officers of the law to just do away with the law when the situation suited it. Undercover boss. At this point, any worker should know if they see a middle-aged white guy or woman with a bad wig, makeup, and a camera crew behind them should be able to figure out they are an undercover boss. That's how the workers of the Star Destroyer figured out it was Kylo Ren. 90% of media you are exposed to is owned by one of 4 or 5 companies, may even be 3 now. The same companies that make your movies and TV shows make your news. News falls into 3 categories: clickbait, we're selling advertisements, use the headline that generates the most outrage and keeps the most viewership. You'd think this would be the most harmless, but they are actively distorting the truth to whatever narrative is most profitable. This is especially harmful when covering mass shootings, terrorist attacks, etc. Making the body count the headline and providing 24/7 coverage of the shooters themselves inspires more shootings to occur. They may as well be advertisements to the unhinged commit horrible atrocities. Your name and your beliefs will be remembered forever. People who were unhinged by the rage-bait news they pumped out in the first place. Depending on your news source, you can live in an information bubble completely isolated from people who get their news elsewhere. This is one of the biggest sources of disruptive controversy and division in our nation, and you're better off shutting it out than anything else. Narrative: this is propaganda in support of the owners. Why won't Fox ever criticize an oil company? Why does ABC always side with Disney and use Disney fun facts to fill empty coverage? Why does the New York Times write articles in defense of billionaires? Narrative is shaping the truth not to generate direct profit, but to support the goals and needs of its ownership. Sponsorship: this is propaganda in support of the contributors. Essentially, they'll run any propaganda piece you pay for so long as it doesn't conflict with their narrative. For the conventional propaganda, the DNC, GOP, and federal government are frequent customers. The worst part is that it works and there's millions upon millions in the US not even trying to fight it. It should be a mantra in your head every time Fox/CNN/NBC/ABC or honestly any media with an opinion comes on air. I am not immune to propaganda. Mein Kampf. Author seemed very biased. Heard he was a decent artist too. Brave guy too, wasn't he the dude who killed Hitler?